because they traded up one spot from number 11 to 10. They got the national champion quarterback, JJ McCarthy.
Last week's NFL draft crowned the Minnesota Vikings as the ultimate winners. As the season ended, Vikings fans watched longtime quarterback Kirk Cousins depart for Atlanta in free agency, leaving a significant void under center. And with a quarterback room featuring Sam Darnold and Nick Mullins, it was evident that the Vikes needed to find Cousins' successor in the draft. However, sitting at 11th in the draft order, there was no guarantee of snagging the franchise quarterback without trading up. In the end, they only had to move up one spot, largely due to the New York Giants' decision not to select the quarterback, leaving JJ McCarthy available at pick number 10. And after a swift trade with the New York Jets, the Vikings were able to secure their man, last year's national champion from the University of Michigan and the future of Minnesota football. The Vikings have got themselves a proven winner who compiled a stunning 27-1 record as a starter in 2 seasons as a Wolverine, the best winning percentage of any college quarterback since 1971. And as we delve into the Vikings offseason and the addition of JJ McCarthy, it becomes more evident that Minnesota has executed the offseason to near perfection, transforming themselves from a franchise lagging behind in a loaded division to one that can compete at the highest level. This is a franchise desperately in need of a reset, and while the Vikings did post a 13-4 record in 2022, their win-loss record painted a better picture of their performance than actually was the case. Minnesota ended the regular season with a negative point differential, with many fans considering them to be frauds throughout that season. Those fans were proven right in the wildcard round, as Kevin O'Connell's men fell 31-24 to a fairly mediocre New York Giants team, who were barely above 500 themselves. That loss brought Cousins' playoff record as a starter to 1-3, raising further questions about his ability as a quarterback in big moments, and his ability to lead his team to the big game. In 2023, however, Cousins was excellent in the games he played, with a passer rating of 103.8 in 8 games, marking him as one of the best quarterbacks in the league. When he went down with a torn Achilles, the Vikings faltered down the stretch, rolling out Josh Dobbs and Nick Mullins, neither of whom are starting caliber in this league. Another Minnesota season fizzled out to the tune of a 7-10 record. Dejected, Cousins decided that he needed to leave for pastures new, leaving the Vikings in need of a new quarterback without a backup plan. They also had several other roster gaps that they needed to be filled. The position that Minnesota found themselves in was especially deflating when you consider the intense level of competition they now face in the NFC North. Most odds makers still have Minnesota as the 4th favorites to win the division, which could easily now be the best division in football. The Chicago Bears executed a much flashier draft, picking up the transcendent talent that is quarterback Caleb Williams with the 1st overall pick, and supporting him with star wide receiver Rome Odunze with pick number 9. And for the first time in years, the Bears actually look like a serious contender, with these 2 elite-level rookies stepping into a team that wasn't terrible last year, and a team which also added Keenan Allen, Kevin Berard, and DeAndre Swift to name a few. Elsewhere in the division, the Detroit Lions looked well placed to repeat last year's breakout season, in which they won their first divisional title since 1993 and came within 3 points of making their first ever Super Bowl appearance. Under Dan Campbell, Detroit has improved significantly over his 3-year tenure and possesses one of the league's very best offenses right now, put together by a general manager, Brad Holmes and company. The final team in the division, of course, is the Green Bay Packers, who once again look to have found their franchise quarterback after 3 decades of Hall of Fame play from both Brett Favre and Aaron Rodgers. Jordan Love looked fantastic in the second half of last season and helped guide the youngest team in football to a stunning upset win in Dallas in the wildcard round before suffering a narrow, heartbreaking defeat to San Francisco the following week. The Packers are also on the rise, posing another hurdle to the Vikings' Super Bowl aspirations. For the Vikings to compete this year, they need an exceptional offseason, and it appears they've delivered almost just that. We'll get to McCarthy in a minute, but the Vikings' other major draft move was trading up to number 17 to snag Alabama defensive end Dallas Turner, one of the very best pass rushers in the draft. This was an aggressive play by Vikings general manager Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, moving up 6 spaces in a trade with Jacksonville, trading away a few late-round picks in the process to jump teams like the LA Rams and Miami Dolphins for a dangerous edge rusher. Turner was a consensus All-American for the Crimson Tide and is one of the most athletic draft prospects at the position. He was a second defensive lineman taken on Thursday after UCLA's Laiatu Latu, and he absolutely has the potential to be one of the very best in the league at the position. This was a position of need for the Vikings on a defensive line which lacks true game-changing playmakers. Turner is something of a project player, but his upside is huge. If used correctly in Brian Flores' defense, he could be a key player in turning this defense into one of the very best in football, which still need to compete in the division. The Vikings were also very active in free agency, bringing in former Packers running back Aaron Jones in a move that must have stung for fans in green and gold. Jones has been one of the very best running backs in football in recent years, despite suffering various injury setbacks over his 7-year pro career. Last season, Jones got hot at just the right time for the Packers' playoff run, picking up 5 consecutive 100-yard games and giving a key role to the team's surprise run to the divisional round. He averaged 5 yards per carry in his NFL career and has scored 63 total touchdowns, which will be critical for a team that ranked 4th last in rushing yards last campaign. On defense, the Vikings strengthened as well, bringing in Jonathan Greenard from the Houston Texans on a 4-year, $72 million deal, an ideal replacement for the departing Danielle Hunter, alongside ex-Dolphin Andrew Van Ginkel, who was reunited with former head coach Brian Flores. This Vikings defense is looking stronger than last year and ready to make a run at the division title in 2024. But of course, the biggest change is the new signal caller from the University of Michigan. JJ McCarthy could very well be the man to finally bring a Super Bowl to the land of 10,000 lakes in Minnesota. He's coming out of the back ending of a title drought in Michigan, bringing the school's football program their first national title since 1997, looking calm and collected while doing so through all 15 wins and 0 losses in 2023. McCarthy and his Michigan team endured a fairly turbulent season, with head coach Jim Harbaugh missing several games due to suspensions, which could have derailed a lesser team and quarterback, but not McCarthy, who showcased tremendous leadership throughout, including in the Rose Bowl against Alabama, where he threw for 221 yards and 3 touchdowns, helping the Wolverines to a thrilling 27-17 victory. He already looks like he has the poise and mental toughness required to be a top pro quarterback, even if he doesn't quite have the flashy highlight reel like Caleb Williams does. But there might not be a more reliable quarterback in this draft, capable of finding receivers in the short passing game where he can, and floating superb deep balls down the sideline when called upon. Some of the reservations around McCarthy focused on how he had such a good supporting cast while he was at Michigan, with some arguing that his 27-1 record as a starter was largely due to the extremely good situation that he found himself in, including being coached by one of the best coaches in America in Jim Harbaugh. But there's been plenty of praise for McCarthy and how he's been conducting himself throughout his college career and how that will go on to the NFL. Some have even described him as the best quarterback in Michigan history, which would put him ahead of the likes of a certain Tom Brady. And while this might seem like an unreasonably bit of high praise, one man who argued this after the Rose Bowl victory was Tom Brady himself, and who are we to argue with him? With his biggest competition in training camp being Sam Darnold, it's safe to say that McCarthy will be starting in Week 1, and he's been blessed with several significant weapons on his offense. For one, he has TJ Hockenson, one of the league's very best tight ends, who racked up 960 yards last season and is critical at keeping drives alive, having picked up 48 first downs on the year. As we said, McCarthy should have substantial help in the running game with the addition of Aaron Jones, who will be looking for a 4th 1,000-yard season of his career, having been a key part of the Packers' offense for years. But of course, the star of the show here is Justin Jefferson. Jefferson is probably the very best wide receiver in football when healthy, and one of the very best players in the league, full stop. In 2023, he was voted as the 2nd best player in the league on the NFL Top 100 list, only behind Patrick Mahomes, of course. That came off the back of a 2022 season in which he was awarded the Offensive Player of the Year award for his league-leading 1,809 receiving yards and cementing himself as one of the best in the game, and honestly, one of the best of all time. Even last season, where he only played in 10 games, Jefferson still hit the 1,000-yard mark, averaging a new career high, 107.4 per game, and despite missing nearly half the season, he broke the NFL record for most yards in a player's first 4 seasons, overtaking ex-New Orleans Saint Michael Thomas with 5,899 yards in 4 years of pro football. In a way, though, pure numbers can't do justice to just how good of a player he really is. He's a permanent threat for the Vikings in short routes, long routes, between the numbers, over the top. Simply put, there's nothing that Jefferson can't do, and he's the ultimate asset for any quarterback, especially a rookie starting Week 1. However, as brilliant as Justin Jefferson is, the Vikings have so far had little to show for in his time in Minnesota. He has played in just 1 playoff game in 4 years, the previously mentioned loss to the Giants in January of 2023. The Vikings' biggest concern moving forward is managing their star receiver's upcoming contract. They exercised his 5th-year option in 2024, committing to pay him $19.7 million this year as his rookie deal expires. Following this season, he will become an unrestricted free agent and is poised to command a salary exceeding $30 million annually, surpassing the current top-paid receivers in A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, and Tyreek Hill. If Cousins was still earning the contract that he had while he was in Minnesota, the team would have been unable to keep them both. But if JJ McCarthy is earning a rookie deal for the next 4 years, it looks like the Vikings could be able to pull off a deal for Jefferson, albeit a very pricey one. That should excite Vikings fan, now entering a 4 to 5 year window of opportunity, having nailed the rookie quarterback selection. Jefferson has already reached out to McCarthy to welcome him to Minnesota, and fans across the NFC North should be worried about this connection. As stacked as this division is now, this really has the potential to be one of the very best duos in football, with Jefferson elevating McCarthy's play early on. Key to this would be the coaching of Kevin O'Connell, one of the many young coaches in the league right now. He was Sean McVay's offensive coordinator with the LA Rams when they lifted Super Bowl 56 against the Cincinnati Bengals, adding a Lombardi to his building resume. In his debut season as a professional head coach, O'Connell's Vikings boasted the league's 8th best offense in 2022. However, last year, Cousins' injury disrupted the offense, which plummeted to 22nd in scoring. They struggled in multiple games, failing to generate offense with Josh Dobbs or Nick Mullins under center. But McCarthy should be a different story. He's shown his ability to adapt to a system and to control an offense that he made his own at Michigan. He's also unlikely to be fazed by pro football, having passed the hardest test in college football with flying colors while regularly playing in front of hundreds of thousands of fans. So, are the Vikings a playoff team this year? In a word, yes, they can be. McCarthy might just be the most NFL-ready of the quarterbacks in this year's draft. At plus 1,000, he seems excellent value for Offensive Rookie of the Year. Not that Caleb Williams and Jaden Daniels won't also flash greatness in the NFL, but McCarthy is absolutely everything a young man would need, and he's the perfect fit for O'Connell's offense. A top-level running back, one of the league's best tight ends, and of course, Justin Jefferson, who is always a good pick for Offensive Player of the Year as long as he can stay healthy. One thing is for sure though, these Vikings are not just here to make up the numbers. In an NFC that lacks significant depth, they could be well positioned for a surprising playoff run, even if they don't win the division. With the amount of hype that Williams, Daniels, and May have received as the top 3 picks, McCarthy has slipped under the radar a little, which I think the Vikings are just fine with. In 12 months' time, it'll be clear that the Vikings have picked up the best quarterback on the draft class, and if not the best, one of the very best, and they have only had to move up one spot to do it.